Good day and welcome to another edition of Q&A Social Security Disability Today. I am your host, Attorney Anthony Reeves, and it's always a pleasure to have you here with me today. For those of you who have questions, I've had a couple of people ask me if they can send me questions offline. You can do so by visiting my website, www.reevesfirm.com, or you can email me directly at anthony@reevesfirm.com, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions for you. As you know, if you post a question here, I'll be more than happy to get to it, and I try to make sure I get to all my questions the following week. Or you can just subscribe to my blog. Just to let you know that if you subscribe to legalbeat.anthonyreeves.com, that blog typically goes over topics that are not covered on my videos. So you kind of get a double dose of video questions here and different topics that I get on there. So as always, I hope this is a good resource for you, and let's go ahead and get rocking and rolling. My first question really has to deal with more about SSI than anything else. The question really talked about if they moved out of their home and moved to a different place, does Social Security make adjustments for people who have to live somewhere on their own? This doesn't come into play except for when you're talking about supplemental security income. If you are receiving disability benefits based on you paying into the system, then it really doesn't matter where you live because that's not resource sensitive. SSI, or supplemental security income, is resource sensitive, meaning if you're living under one particular environment and they're calculating your benefits based on your resources and income from that living environment, if you move to a different environment, you need to let Social Security know, because if your living arrangement is different in that new environment, it may adjust your benefits going up or down. Let's give you a good example. Let's say, for instance, you're living at home with your parents and you're not paying any expenses, no rent, no utilities, nothing. They're eating the entire cost for you. As a result, Social Security for your SSI is a little lower because they feel that you're not needing as much assistance because you're getting so much from that house. But let's say you're moving out of that house now and you're moving in with a friend of yours, and now you have a responsibility to pay rent. Well, that means that's a less of a resource available that you have in your own pocket, meaning you may need more assistance from Social Security. Now keep in mind, the SSI program has a cap, so it caps around $680, $700 a month. So even if your financial stress, like let's say you move out and you're having to pay rent and utilities and all that stuff, even though that number goes up, the most of money you can get from SSI is only going to go up to a certain dollar amount. So the answer to your question, for purposes of SSI, yes, they do adjust it going up and down depending on your financial resources where you stay. So that's the first question. Second question is, somebody asked us, if I won a case in employment law, will that affect my Social Security disability? Again, the only time resource comes into play is SSI. Now, you're talking about a windfall. So let's say you have a personal injury lawsuit or a workers' comp lawsuit or even an employment lawsuit, and you're expecting to get a lump sum of money. If you're receiving SSI, is that going to have an impact? Absolutely, because that's going to be a large lump sum of money that you're going to receive. Now, what typically happens is that if you get that large lump sum of money, for every month you have it over a certain threshold, SSI will suspend payments for that month until you can demonstrate that you have spent that money down to a certain dollar amount. Now, for those of you who are sitting here going, wait a minute, that means if I get a check for $50,000, $60,000, I got to pay that whole thing down before I can start getting SSI money again? Yeah. Now, there are things that you can do to prevent that. Well, that's what we call a special needs trust. You could actually have a special needs trust that is created that doesn't count against you. Now, you need to get an attorney who can help you set those up. They're kind of tricky. Okay, so keep that in mind. Also, if you decide not to get a special needs trust and you said I'm going to spend it down, you need to make sure you spend your money down within 12 months. Why do I say that? Because after the 12th month, the SSI suspension becomes an SSI termination. That means, let's say you get a lump sum of $50,000 and you spend it down, and you spend it down over 9 months. What happens then? After 9 months, then you tell Social Security you spend it down, you provide them receipts. Make sure you keep receipts, people. And then once you've demonstrated that you've spent that money down, they will then reinstate your SSI. However, let's say you spend the money down and you do it after a year, year and a half. And you're like, okay, I spent it all down, I'm good to go. After 12 months, they've terminated your SSI. You now got to start over. So just keep those things in mind. More importantly, if you are worried about the fact that you're going to get a lump sum, contact Social Security ahead of time. I've seen some people who try to get slick, and this is the thing that I have to remind you. If you get a lump sum, Social Security is going to find out. You cannot hide a lump sum because why? Because if it's employment law, workers' comp, PI, anything, it's going to have some tie into what? Your Social Security. Whoever is awarding you that lump sum has to report that money. So don't think because you got the money you're going to be slick and say, I'm going to hide it over here in a safe deposit box and nobody will find out. Wrong answer. Social Security will know. And they're going to want to know when you spend it down. So try not to be slick. All right. Third question is, what happens for lack of credits where you have maybe worked self-employed and you haven't paid enough into the Social Security system, and when you go to apply for disability, you find out that you have not paid enough credits? This is where you need to go contact a CPA company, a CPA or a tax attorney, or some company that talks in terms of paying in. This happens sometimes when you have not paid enough or you've paid under the table and you didn't report enough earnings for certain years for credit purposes. Can you go back and do it then? Yes, you can. This is the time when I tell people contact a tax accountant or a CPA firm, tell them what it is, have them recalculate that for you to see if you've acquired enough credits, and once you've notified Social Security, then you should be fine. Now, it may mean that during that time period when you didn't report to them, you may have to repay back into that system. So don't think just because during those time periods when you weren't paying in, you're just going to go back and refile your taxes. There may be something that you may have to pay. So keep that in the back of your mind. So yes, you can go back and fix it. I have seen that done, but just keep in mind that you may have to come out of pocket in order to do so. I hope these questions answered them. I hope I answered these questions for you. As always, check me out at legalbeat.anthonyreeves.com. Send a message here if you want to ask me additional questions. I'm always here for you. And as always, you can visit me at www.reevesfirm.com. This is Anthony Reeves, and I hope you've enjoyed another edition of Q&A Social Security Disability Today.